النجاة قسيتا فإذا وعى القرآن حينا لانا.
When I met this man, I was so surprised. He was wearing normal clothes.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in thumma amma ba'd.
Let's say paradise. You want to enter paradise, you need a key. You want to enter this door, you need a key. Each key has a number of teeth.
That the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith and also is mentioned in the Quran is actually the issue of music.
Say ye bear witness, we are Muslimun, that we are Muslims bowing our will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You guys have no idea how excited I am to start this series off with such an amazing and beautiful.
आइए हम सब इस किताब की तरफ रुजू करते हैं खालिस नियत के साथ, सच्चे दिल के साथ.
We see the roles of men and women as complementing each other. We're not in competition with each other.
Who created you in a state of weakness, then gave you strength.
Swear by the declining day, man is at a loss, save those who have faith, the background and the salih action.
And the best way we can remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the Quran.
Those who study in our institutions should understand that that is useless knowledge.
Everyone could claim that he loves someone else or she loves someone else for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His final messenger and Prophet Muhammad, upon all his family members, all the righteous companions, and all those who follow in their path till the day of judgment. Ameen. On behalf of Discover Islam, I'm honored to warmly welcome you to tonight's program with the greeting of Islam, which is the greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are honored tonight with two distinguished guest speakers from Canada. Our first guest speaker is Sheikh Waleed Abdulhakeem. He is known as the traveling Imam. He has traveled to more than 100 plus countries and in all the 6 continents. In fact, he has been spreading the message of Islam and doing training on personal development. From the villages of China to the Arctic north of Norway to the jungles of South America. He can really draw the world map from memory right now. He is also the founder and director of the Islamic Studies at Al Path Academy online and a professor at the Al-Maghrib Institute. He was the Imam and director of religious studies, which was for the first Islamic center in Toronto, Canada, which is known as the Jami Mosque. He is also a member of the Canadian Council of Imams. Sheikh Waleed has been invited to some of the largest Islamic conferences around the world, including the Peace TV conference and the International Islamic Leadership Conference, where he shared a platform with the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Sheikh Waleed has been featured on many local and international satellite TV channels in Europe, in North America and the Middle East, such as Iqra, Al-Huda, Bridges, Canada TV and others. He's currently finishing his PhD in Islamic Studies from the Islamic International University. Let us warmly welcome Sheikh Waleed to enlighten us on tonight's topic, which is Middle Nation, Maintaining the Just Balance. Welcome Sheikh Waleed from all of us. Please take the floor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Welcome my dear brothers and respected sisters in Islam. Jazakumullahu khairan. It is my honor to be here among you in Bahrain, alhamdulillah, my first time over here. And inshallah, today we're going to talk about the topic by time. Okay? So, alhamdulillah, when we look at Imam al-Shafi'i, may Allah have mercy on his soul, Imam al-Shafi'i mentioned that there is a surah in the Quran. If that surah was the only surah that was revealed to us, it would have been sufficient to summarize what our life is about. Anyone knows that surah? Surah Al-Asr. Yes, and when you hear Al-Asr, our mind goes to Salat Al-Asr. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning of the surah is making an oath to bring our attention to time. Al-Asr. Wal-Asr. By time. What is the answer of the oath? Inna al-insana lafi khusr. All human beings are in loss. Subhanallah. All human beings that don't pay attention to the quality of time, they are in loss. But from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the next ayah gives an exception. Illa. Except, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 4 characteristics, 4 things, that this is the formula of how we, the believers in our life, would be able to maximize our benefit out of time. When, subhanAllah, I'm going to share with you a story, and when I witnessed this, it has changed my life. SubhanAllah. I was traveling a few years ago to a country in the very far east, to Japan. And then, as I was there, I was watching the news in the morning. Before going out, we were heading to the masjid in Kobe. And then, subhanAllah, in the news, they were talking about that they were celebrating the fact that in the last 20 years, the average time that the train was delayed over that period of time is 18 seconds only. And the celebration was the fact that by that year, they were able to drop it down to 15 instead of 18. Okay? And they were holding a press conference about it. And I was thinking to myself, subhanAllah, 18 seconds, 15 seconds, what difference does it make? 3 seconds, what difference does it make? And if you wait right now, 3 seconds are gone. Okay? That's the way we think, subhanAllah, sometimes about minutes, not seconds, right? So then, as they were explaining and showing the data, I understood what difference does it make. Maybe for an individual, you think it doesn't make much difference. But when you look at it at the level of a nation, this is how they thought of it. They said, look, our population is 120 million. Half of those work, 60 million. So if we have saved those 3 seconds when they're going to work and 3 seconds coming back, that's 6 seconds times 60 million, that's 360 million seconds saved every day. We're talking about 100,000 hours. This is why that small country, Japan, is just a few islands. It is the size of one state in the US. But their economy is the size of 36 states. 36 states, subhanAllah. If you compare Japan, that small country, to any of the 4 continents, South America or Africa or West Europe or the rest of Asia, their economy outdoes each of those continents. SubhanAllah. Even though they do not have any resources. What is the resource? Or that's what I said, right? They don't have, when we think about resources, we're talking about natural resources, but they have a resource. If any nation uses that to the max, even if they don't have natural resources, they succeed the most. And humans, at the same time, they also succeed if they use that resource. And that resource is time. And when I heard about this, I wondered to myself, how were the Muslims, what does Islam say about time and time management? How were the Muslims in the golden era in the past and ulama manage their time? And today, alhamdulillah, we will not be able to discuss all the ways that they did this, but this is, inshallah, this lecture is just an eye-opener for you. Some of the techniques that the ulama have used and how that made them succeed in their life. There is a full workshop, alhamdulillah, we've done this before in Dubai, for the government of Malaysia, for corporation, but you will just get a sampler of those stories. Look at, subhanAllah, look at Islam, what it teaches us about time. If someone started their salah just 5 seconds before adhan, is their salah accepted? If they prayed their salah 5 seconds after the next adhan came, the adhan salah, is it accepted? It would be accepted, but as qada. The same thing with fasting. If someone breaks their fast a few seconds before adhan al-maghrib, subhanAllah. So Islam teaches us the importance not just of minutes and hours, but even by the second. Your ibadah would be accepted or not accepted depending, subhanAllah, on just a few seconds. And then when I looked at the ayat and the ahadith that talk about time, and subhanAllah, I observed the questions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us on the day of judgment. From the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He already told us the exam, what are the questions coming in it. Many of you are students, mashallah. Imagine your professor already gives you the questions coming in the exam. How much are you going to get? If you get anything less than an A, how sorrowful would that be? So from those questions, from the 4 questions, how many of them are about time? How many from the 4? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are the 4 questions? عَنْ عُمْرِهِ فِيمَا أَفْنَاهُ. What did the person spend their life doing? وَعَنْ شَبَابِهِ, especially their youth time, the time of power. What did they do in that time? And then about the knowledge, what they did with it, and about the money, how did they earn it and how did they spend it. But what's the percentage of the exam? What percentage is going to be about time? 50%. 50%, that's the criteria between those who are losing, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Asr, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, all human beings are losing. And that's the criterion between those who will be winning for eternity. Let us look at the characteristics of time to understand it better. The first characteristic is that you have a capital of time. You have a certain number that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you before you were born. And that number is not going to be changed. You cannot increase it, you cannot decrease it, but you can learn to manage it in the best way. Every day you wake up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you 86,400. What? Dinar? Seconds. And this is the advice that Ibn al-Jawzi, one of the famous scholars, he advised his son. He said, "Oh my son, ya bunay, innama al-umru, your life is what? Is made of what? Anfas. Your life is made of breathings." At that time, they did not have the concept of 60 seconds and 60 hours, but they still calculated time. They had other methods. So he's telling him, your life is made of breaths. Every time you breathe, inhale, exhale, that's a second. So on the day of judgment, these seconds, imagine them, these breaths, will come like boxes. What would you like to see when you open these boxes? What did you do in them? And this is why Al-Hasan al-Basri, one of the scholars of the Tabi'in, he said, Yabna Adam, O son of Adam, you are made of, innama anta. If I ask you what you're made of right now, what would you say? I am made of bones, flesh, right? Blood, skin. Those of you who are a bit more clever would say what? Also the soul. Yes, we don't just remember the physical part. Okay? He said, you are made of days. If those days are gone, part of your body is gone. How many of us, subhanAllah, when you see a picture of yourself 7, 8 years ago, or even sometimes 4 years, maybe you do not notice the changes day to day, but someone who did not see you for several years, as soon as they see you, what do they say? Subhanallah, akhi. You know, your forehead is becoming what? More cranky, you're getting chubbier, or you're getting thinner, or they notice these things, but you don't notice it. They made an app now for the phone called Photo a Day. You take a picture of yourself every day, and then it makes a video of you for 1 year or 2 years, and then you start noticing these changes that are happening. And this is why Umar ibn Abdulaziz, he said, Inna al-layla wal-nahar, day and night, night and day, are working on you. They're working on your body. So work on them before they work on you. Look at someone like Umar ibn Abdulaziz, who we just mentioned. His time is known as what? The golden time in Islam. He was even nicknamed what? The fifth of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. Do you know how long, what was the period, how long he was a Khalifa for? Anyone knows?
2.5 years.
25 years?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. That's it. 2.5 years. He was able to take the ummah to a level, to a renaissance in everything. In Islamic sciences, in the other sciences, in the economy, to the point that there was no poor people. They go and try to give people zakah, people will not accept it. Until they bought seeds and fed it to the birds on the mountains. SubhanAllah. What did someone like him do? When you see a ruler like him, the Khalifa, and what he did, for example, you know, he had an annual meeting with the regional rulers. There is the ruler, he's the Khalifa of all the Muslims, but there's the ruler of Iraq, the ruler of Yemen, the ruler of Asham, the ruler of Al-Hijaz, Egypt. And they all came to the palace of the Khilafah to what? To give him the report, the annual report about what's happening in their nation. And after they discuss all these things, what do they do? Does he just let them go? No, he did something very unique, subhanAllah. After they finish discussing this, before they go back to their country, okay, to the place they're ruling, he had a group of ulama coming. And those ulama would be sitting in a circle, and each one of those ulama represents one of the stages of death. So the first one will talk about the final moments in life, how the soul leaves the body. The second one will talk about the janazah. The third one will talk about the grave, what happens inside the grave. The fourth one will talk about the resurrection. The fifth one will talk about the accounting, the hisab in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sixth one will talk about the salat. And then the other two will talk about Jannah, paradise and hellfire. Now imagine those rulers after they go through all these stages. What do you think? How are they going to rule their nation when they go back? And this is the connection between taqwa and success. Otherwise, we would just be talking about time management theories or what we learn, you know, from books. You can get those in the library, like one of the best books, Getting Things Done, or other books, okay? Bestsellers. But when you connect what we learn to Islam, then you managing your time is a ibadah. Then you doing it, you're motivated. You know that you are rewarded when you compromise your time, when you compromise on things that are unnecessary in your life to get things that bring benefit to you and to the ummah, and to your family and to your community. That is the essence of managing our time. Characteristic number 2 is time flies by so quickly. You know, it's already been, subhanAllah, 17 minutes since we started this lecture. Did you feel it was 17 minutes? This is the nature of time. If I ask you how long ago was Ramadan, without looking at your calendar, if you don't look, it feels like it was just, 3-4 months ago. It's already been 9 months almost, subhanAllah. We are in Jamad al-Awwal. So this is how life goes, those years. If you sit down with yourself and try to remember, play your life in your head. From the moment you were a child, going through teenage years, going through school, university, until you graduated, until you got married, until later. If you try to sit down and play all your memories, how long that's going to take you? Maybe a few hours at best, right or wrong. SubhanAllah. This is our life. The Prophet ﷺ said, the life of my ummah is between 60 and 70. The day of judgment is equal to how many years? 50,000. Divide those 70 years by 50,000, what do you get? As if this life, if you do the math, as if this life is just 2 minutes compared to the day of judgment. But if you calculate it even compared to Jannah, how long people say in Jannah, inshallah? Khalidina fiha, eternity. And you learn, those of you who are engineer in math, you take any big number, you divide it by infinity, what do you get? You get 0. This life is like a 0, subhanAllah. But it's a bit bigger than 0. That's your chance. That's the only shot that you have to decide where your place in Jannah is going to be. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the people of Jannah. So we were talking about the second characteristic, that time flies by. So Amr ibn Qais, one of the tabi'in, as he was walking, so a man asked him, he said, "Halla natakallam, can we sit down and chat?" You know, there was no purpose for that. Just let's do a general chat. You know what he said to him? He said to him, "Can you stop the sun? Can you stop the sun?" SubhanAllah. You can't, and no one does. And I know when we hear this, sometimes we feel that what? Does that mean I should leave social life? No. You know, Dr. Bilal, inshallah, Jazakallah khair, he will talk to you about maintaining the balance. Okay? How to balance your life among all these things. I will talk to you about how to, inshallah, manage your time, and he will fix, inshallah, what I have been trying to motivate you to do. Okay? Alhamdulillah. So when you look, subhanAllah, someone who just died last year, Dr. Abdulhakeem al-Sumit, may Allah have mercy on him, from Kuwait. How many people know him? MashaAllah. About half. Dr. Abdulhakeem al-Sumit. Someone like him, 25 years in Africa. But look at his accomplishments. About 7 million people accepted Islam. 8,000 schools were opened. 6,000 hospitals. And so many other things. Now someone like him, if we wanted to sit with him, subhanAllah, for 5 and 10 minutes, how difficult would that be? Not because he is arrogant or he doesn't want to sit with people like some people think, famous shuyukh or famous alim. No. When they have a goal and they know they have limited time in this life, they will try to do anything to reach that goal. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes them away, they try to reach that legacy. The third characteristic is that whatever time goes, it never comes back. And this is why one of the scholars, when he was a student, his name is Muhammad ibn Salam, he was sitting in front of a sheikh who was narrating hadith. And while he's writing down the hadith, the pen broke. So he said, "Who would give me a pen for a dinar?" And we're not talking about Bahraini dinar, which is about $2 something. Dinar at that time is what? A gold coin. How much would a gold coin cost? How many pens would that buy? Okay. They said at that time it would buy over 100 pens. So then when he offered this, So many students rushed to give them what? The pen, so that they would get that dinar. After the lecture, it was over. They asked him, they said, how did you offer a full dinar for just a small pen? And he said, I was not buying the pen, I was buying the time. You know, if that hadith his Sheikh is narrating, he did not catch, maybe he will never get it again in his life. He's buying these moments. SubhanAllah, well, I see some people, I know some of you hear this and say this is in the past. Okay? But wallahi, some people I see today, and they're implementing this in their life. I was visiting, about 5 months ago, I was visiting the Islamic Center in Copenhagen, in Denmark. And over there, I heard about the Imam of the Masjid, MashaAllah. He has 2 PhDs, one in Aqidah, one in Fiqh. He has Ijazah in the 10 Qira'at of the Quran and in the 6 books of Hadith. And I was imagining I'm going to meet someone who, MashaAllah, with white hair and on a cane. SubhanAllah, I met him and he is very young. And I thought to myself, SubhanAllah, what is he doing? He was able to achieve all this. And so when we met together, when we sat down together, I noticed the difference. When we sat down together, the first 2 or 3 minutes, he was just giving me salam, asking me about my family and my travel, and immediately he brought out a list of questions that he has prepared before I even came. SubhanAllah, I was surprised. He already read the biography and he started to ask me, what are the best books about management? What is the best books about time? What is the best books? And I know, SubhanAllah, he was what? He was trying to maximize the benefits of his time instead of us talking about random things. And I was feeling shy, SubhanAllah, someone who didn't even achieve half of what he did. I would have even prepared more questions to ask him about this. And so I learned, alhamdulillah, that we should always, when we have our ulama coming, like Dr. Bilal Phillips, then we have our questions in advance. SubhanAllah, someone spent 30 or 40 years studying something, becoming an expert in it. And you get a chance that they will be your consultant for 3 to 5 minutes. The time you can ask them that 1 or 2 questions. What would you ask them? How many years would you cut from your life, would you save from your life, by asking an expert in something? That is the benefit that we get. Today when you buy a book and you look at the book and you want to read it, sometimes we buy more books than we could read. And then when you want to read it, you look at the price in the back and it says $20 or 15 dinar or 10 dinar. Okay? Is that really the true value of the book? No. How much the person who wrote the book, how much did they spend on their education and their research? And then they're giving you 30 years, you're getting it in 2-3 hours of reading. SubhanAllah. The resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us today is nearly unlimited. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all that was on earth for you to use it, to utilize it. And the fourth characteristic is that the person doesn't know when his time will be over. One of the scholars, his name is Jamaluddin al-Qasimi, one of the scholars of Hadith. As he was leaving his home, he passed by a coffee shop on his way, and he saw people who are what? Just sitting down, drinking coffee, not drinking anything haram. And just playing chess and playing with cards and other things. Then he goes for a few hours, and he comes back, and they're doing the exact same thing. And he said, SubhanAllah, what did he say? He said, I wish time was something to be bought. Then I would have bought it from these people who are not utilizing it in the best way. And because, alhamdulillah, I want to give the most of the time to Dr. Bilal Phillips, let me end with an advice. This, inshaAllah, there are so many things about time management, but I will give you, as a Muslim, the golden advice about time management. something I learned from a scholar who was extremely successful as a alim, as a scholar, and extremely successful as a businessman, and extremely successful as a family man. And that is Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah have mercy on his soul. Imam Abu Hanifa, how did he manage his time? How did he become a giant in all these things? In addition to being one of the top 4 scholars of fiqh of all time, he was also a very successful merchant, to the point that he sponsored over 30 of his students from his own pocket, so that they would become his full-time students to narrate his knowledge to others. And from that came ulama like Muhammad ibn al-Hasan and Abu Yusuf. Imam Abu Hanifa, let's look at his day. He managed his life around the pillar of Islam, around Salah. Imam Abu Hanifa would wake up before Fajr, and then he would do some raka'at of qiyam. Qiyam, any number you can do, from 2 up to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you as much as He can. Yeah? Customarily, the Prophet ﷺ did 8, and then the witr. And then after the qiyam, Fajr time comes. So he prays Salat al-Fajr in Jama'ah, and after Salat al-Fajr, until sunrise, are you able to do Salah anymore? You're not able to do that. So at that time, he would be what? He would be studying and preparing what he's going to teach later in the day. Because when you are in the morning, those early morning hours, your brain is the most alert. Your energy, your battery is still at 100% charge. Until he waits in the masjid, until sunrise happens, so that he gets the thawab that the Prophet ﷺ talked about. If the person stays after Salat al-Fajr until sunrise in the masjid, and then they pray 2 rak'ahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them, this is in the book of At-Tirmidhi, would give them the thawab of Umrah and Hajj. So after the sunrise, and when I say sunrise, we're talking about 45 minutes about sunrise, the time of duha, that's when he prays Salat al-Duha. Salat al-Duha, how many rak'ahs? Any number from 2 to 8. The ulama said the best is 4, but even 2 counts. The Prophet ﷺ, he said every person of you, when they wake up healthy, the person has 360 joints in their body. For every joint that is healthy when you wake up, you owe a sadaqah. So imagine you have to pay 360 sadaqahs every day. 360 dinars. How much is that? That's a lot. So the Sahaba, they said, Man minna yatiqu dhalika ya Rasulullah? Who could handle this, O Prophet of Allah? And then you say, Subhanallah, it is sadaqah. You say, Alhamdulillah, it is sadaqah. You help the person get on the right, that is sadaqah. You help the needy person on the way, you remove the harm from the road, that is sadaqah. But 2 rak'ahs of duha equal to all of this. And then after that, what? He goes and he starts what? His business, his buying and selling. That's his work time. Until the time of Salat al-Dhuhr. And then he prays Salat al-Dhuhr. And after Salat al-Dhuhr, he does a sunnah that many of us have forgotten. What is that sunnah? Taking a nap, qaydura. The qaydura. When you read today the books about productivity, when you woke up in Fajr, your energy is 100%, and then 90%, 80%, your energy is decreasing. But if you take a nap, they say even 45 minutes, you get back to full energy again for the rest of the day. Today when you go even to Spain, the Muslims were in Spain for 800 years, that's their work hours every day. From 8 to 12, and then from 3 to 8. Other Western countries, no, they have 9 to 5, one shot. But our Islam teaches us the most productive way. And after he has his lunch and he has the qaylura, he wakes up for Salat al-Asr. And then after he prays Salat al-Asr, between Asr and Maghrib, that's the time he sits with his students. That's when they produce knowledge together. And then Salat al-Maghrib comes, he prays Salat al-Maghrib, what is left in his life? So he's done his work, he's done his ibadah, he's done his nap, he ate, and the knowledge, what's left? Family. Many of us forget the family in the equation. When you have a project, it doesn't mean you make your family part of that project. So that's the time when he sat with his children and his wife between Maghrib and Isha. Then he prays Salatul Isha. Then he has the private time with his family, with his spouse, his wife. Then he goes to bed to wake up early the next day. How great is that as a way to manage our time? That gift that we sometimes think of as a burden, the salah. No. It's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you to communicate with Him and to plan your life around it. And I've given you an example, and you take that example and customize it for depending on your life. Each one of you have a different purpose. What is that purpose that you're going to live for? What is that purpose that will make you, some people say, how do you sleep 5 hour only or 6 hour early? Is there any techniques? And I say there is no technique. Even if you try to put the alarm, you will feel tired. But if you have a purpose in life that is very exciting, you will want to, as soon as your eyes even open halfway, you're so excited. You get up and you want to work on it. If that purpose doesn't get you out of your bed that way, then maybe you need to examine, is that really the passionate purpose that you have in your life? So alhamdulillah, we saw from the Imam how he practiced his life, how he managed his time in the best way, and how he maintained the balance. And I will give, inshallah, the mic to Dr. Bilal Phillips to teach you, Hafidhullah, to teach you about, and teach me and all of us about how we manage our life in the best way. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullahu khairan. If you would like to ask any questions, I believe there will be question and answer session at the end, or you can reach me on my public page, facebook.com/Imam Waleed, IMAMWALEED, and you can follow my travels around the world. The things I learn, I share and teach on my page. Jazakumullahu khairan, and you can ask questions there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
فإذا وعى القرآن